Hello everybody, welcome to the Wonky Angle, where I talk about electronic music, both new and old. And it's time for another top 10 list. Alright then, while I'm sure we're all pumped up to get right into the next discography review, I want to be able to finish up this one, for my own sake if for nobody else. Pretty Lights is an artist that I've had an on-off relationship with over the years. In high school I could listen to nothing but Pretty Lights for weeks on end, but after I got out of high school, I didn't enjoy him anymore, and didn't want to listen to him or the rest of his genre, aside from Michael Menert. But over the past 2 weeks or so, I've been revisiting his catalog and evaluating as honestly and fairly as I could. And while I don't think I'm ever going to be into him to the same extent as in my high school years, I think I can finally admit I am still a big fan of the guy. I even have a CD of The Color Map of the Sun that just arrived, yesterday. It's pretty cool stuff here. So now it's time for me to finish off my own big nostalgia trip by counting off all my favorites. And yeah, I could wait until the guy's upcoming 2017 album comes out, but since this is mainly about my own nostalgia, I'm doing it now. And the usual disclaimers. As I say at the end of all my videos, it's all my opinion, and you can feel free to disagree with it. I don't take a song's popularity into account, it's just based off of my personal enjoyment and nostalgia. And also none of these lists are final and only reflect how I feel right at the moment of editing it, so let's get right into the top 10 best Pretty Lights songs. Number 10. Hot Like Sauce from Filling Up the City Skies. This is one of those songs that my appreciation for inflated even more after I was able to develop appreciation for hip-hop music in general, as this track is laid out like a giant posse cut of several different hooks. And every single one is great and easy to remember. Not to mention the guy's top-notch synth work, the kind of stuff that just radiates pure awesome. It's no wonder he often reused the formula of this track several times, and even improved on it a few times, but I'll be getting to that. Hot Like Sauce is a track that I loved as a high schooler, and love even more now. One of his most popular, and for good reason. Number 9. Lost and Found from The Hidden Shades. On the flip side, from giant awesome banger tracks, we have stuff like this, which in my opinion is one of Pretty Lights' most underrated tracks ever. The entire reason to listen to the Hidden Shades EP, and a track that probably should have been the closer to his Color Map of the Sun album. The nostalgic vibes on this track are really something else, and the usual urban textures and atmosphere that permeated throughout Color Map only add to everything. Fantastic track that seriously deserves more attention. Certainly more than Odessa's remix, which is just okay to me, but whatever. Number 8. If I Could Feel Again from Passing By Behind Your Eyes. You may recall that Passing By Behind Your Eyes was an album that did not particularly hold up well with me. Thought it was mostly just okay, and I wasn't really expecting anything from there to make this list. But I seriously underestimated the power of this hook. To think that Pretty Lights took a song from a shitty Joel Schumacher adaptation of a well-known Broadway musical and turned it into something that hits this hard and is this ridiculously fun to listen to. This may very well be the guy's best mid-period track that focuses on only one hook. Well, except for maybe... Number 7. Future Blind from Making Up a Changing Mind. This track doesn't have the benefit of having been centered around a hook from a shitty movie and turned it into something awesome, but this one I think edges out If I Could Feel Again's hook power with a bit more emotional power, and slams you in the face even harder than that one. It's a track that both bangs and gets me in the feels as well. I don't have a lot else to say about it, but it's just still a ridiculously great track. Number 6. Color of My Soul from A Color Map of the Sun. Speaking of songs that slam you in the face, this is the very first track that I heard from Pretty Lights, and what a place to start. The blaring horn section, the gritty urban atmosphere, the intense dubstep breakdowns, the wailing vocals. It's a song that sets up the tone of A Color Map of the Sun perfectly, and was the beginning of my journey into discovering hip-hop was actually a genre I could enjoy. I also saw this track live, and it was even better up on the stage with the full live band and live show. Seeing this track alone is one of the highlights of my entire life. Even if that concert later went to shit as the bass was too loud to allow me to hear the rest of the songs, but still. Ton of nostalgia, and no less potent 3.5 years later. Number 5. More Important Than Michael Jordan from Filling Up the City Skies. I put on this track and started trying to think up things to say about it, and I just ended up listening to it in its entirety. It's an intense and emotional journey of a track focused mostly around the guy's synth work, which usually doesn't make for great Pretty Lights tracks, but here he brought his A game, and did quite possibly the best synth noodling he's ever done, crafting together loops and bringing in a nice selection of samples that only serves to make the track even more awesome. Its direct is on for over 8 minutes and keeps me completely on the edge of my seat the entire time, and feels like it's half that length. Number 4. High School Art Class from Spilling Over Every Side. The Spilling Over Every Side EP may have showed me that long extended Pretty Lights tracks are not always winners, but it still had this track on it, which combined all of the best qualities of Hot Like Sauce and More Important Than Michael Jordan. It's a song that demands to be played in its entirety, with so many great hooks both out of his samples and his synth work, and a great balance between the two. At almost 9 minutes, it's one of the longest tracks Pretty Lights has ever made, right behind Take the Sun Away, which is not on this list. But like More Important Than Michael Jordan, it doesn't even feel as close to that long. It zips by super quickly because I know it so well and have listened to it so many times. I mentioned that I left the Pretty Lights concert I saw early because the bass was overwhelming, but I really wish I had stuck around because he played this and 2 more songs on this list that I have yet to mention right after I left. So maybe the bass would have been too much there too, but if it was anything like my experience with Color of My Soul, it would have been worth the trouble. Oh well. Number 3. Finally Moving from Taking Up Your Precious Time. Get a good feeling, yeah. This was going to be my number 1 pick for a long time, but I decided it was a bit too obvious, as this is by far Pretty Lights' most popular track. And I mean, there's not a lot to this track. It's basically just one hook and doesn't have any of the big impressiveness or production values that his later work would go on to have. On top of that, the guitar sample from the beginning of this track was previously used by Nightmares on Wax on his track You Wish, but my god, does this track get me in the feels. I attribute this at least in part to Michael Minert, who co-produced this whole album and has since gone on to make even more giant gut-punch songs like Tomorrow May Never Come. But what can I say, really? Finally Moving gives me a good feeling, and it gives a lot of other people good feelings too. Number 2. Around the Block from A Color Map of the Sun. And on the topic of getting good feelings, here's a Pretty Lights track that pumps a truckload of good feelings directly into your brain, to an intensity that it's almost impossible for me to even talk about it and listen to it at the same time because it's just that awesome. The hooks at the beginning, the rappers from Talib Kweli, or however you pronounce it, the dubstep breakdown. It's a song that tells you everything is perfect, everything just fine, and the sun is shining. And Even if the sun isn't actually shining at all and your day has otherwise been pretty crap, my god, is that message sold. This is a track that lets me remember why it has been so hard to stop listening to Pretty Lights in high school, and only one track, I think, outdoes it. But before we get to that number one, let's get to the honorable mentions. Shortcut Detour from Passing By Behind Your Eyes. Stay from Taking Up Your Precious Time. Solamente from Filling Up the City Skies. An Empty Station from Taking Up Your Precious Time. I Can See It in Your Face from Making Up a Changing Mind. Maybe Tomorrow from Filling Up the City Skies. Wrong Platform from Taking Up Your Precious Time. Up and Down I Go from Filling Up the City Skies. Where I'm Trying to Go from A Color Map of the Sun. Still Night from Glowing in the Darkest Night.
What makes the motherfucker so damn fresh?
Electro Cali from Filling Up the City Skies. We Must Go On, non-album single. That's enough of that. Now let's finally get into number one. Yellow Bird from A Color Map of the Sun. As I said, Finally Moving was going to be my number one for a long time, but I think this track captures a lot of the same feelings that that track does. Only with the added bonus of A, having only been the brainchild of Derek Vincent Smith, one person, B, being much more intense and atmospheric and textured, and C, not containing a single sample. But what really clinched this track for the number one spot is when I realized today that this is the only song that Pretty Lights has ever made that I've never gotten sick of. There have been times where I could listen to Around the Block or Finally Moving and get little to nothing out of them because of overplay, but this one, even when the overplay took away the emotional power, it still had the benefit of being a nice, chilled out, relaxing, feel-good type track that improved my mood by just that little amount. And for that, it's my number one favorite Pretty Lights song. But of course, this is just my opinion. You can feel free to disagree with it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts, so leave the comments in the comment thing down there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all for today. See you next time.